Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of the Social Work Rants podcast. I'm your host, Bash Moreno. Saludos a todos. Greetings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, tapping in wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast. I appreciate all the love and support. Gracias a todos por su apoyo. Continue to follow the podcast on all social media outlets on Instagram at the Social Work Rants podcast. That is all one word. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Social Work Rants, and Facebook, aka Meta. Type in the Social Work Rants podcast, hit that like button, and of course, the YouTube channel, hit that red subscribe button. Slowly gaining the subscribers on the YouTube. I appreciate that. So hit that red subscribe button. Uh, and yeah, continue to watch all the good content and learn something. And these awesome guests keep on coming. I'm trying to finish. I get to the magic number 200 episodes. It will happen by the end of this year, and amazing guests are literally coming. It's when the guests start coming, they the age of abundance. And as of this
hmm
recording, we spent a lot. That word was a key word in the social work wealth conference that actually took place as of this recording today. So if you missed it, you missed it. It was definitely a great conference, and it's only going to get bigger as time moves on. So future reference 2025. Put that on your as a to-do list for 2025. That being said, this podcast is sponsored by Bass Moreno Consulting, providing financial education for people of color in the sandwich generation. So if you are having or you have the responsibilities of caring for your kids and also a older adult parent, you are in the sandwich generation. It doesn't matter if you're an older millennial, a Gen Xer, you fall in that category. I'm offering free 25-minute consultation to discuss how mental health is affecting your finances and all that good stuff that comes with caregiving, and the struggles that come with caregiving. I'm living proof of that day in, day out. So bassmorenoconsulting.com. You can get more information about my business. And the disclaimer, this podcast is not to be used as a substitute for individual therapy. If you have a therapist, contact your therapist. If you have a psychiatrist, see your psychiatrist. Call 988. Uh, really in help. Call 911. It's okay not to be okay, but definitely get the help that you need. For all my viewers or listeners out of the United States, whatever your emergency number is, use that and get the help that you need. Now, my guest at this time is the talented Juliana Lodonio. How you doing, my friend?
Hello, I am doing well. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah, you're making the rounds in these social work streets, doing amazing things. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on the podcast.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And hey, right, it's interesting because I think I was in college when I heard, I think it was a professor or an advisor, someone say, if you want to get something done, give it to somebody that's busy. And I'm like, what? Like, I never understood it. And then, of course, I was that high achieving student in college and in grad school. And I'm like, I get it. Like, some way, somehow, like, we get all this stuff done, and there's never time and never enough time, and time keeps running away from us. But we do it. And I think that that's what this field is about, right? Just continuing to give back and connect with folks and be on podcasts and spread the information and bring that awareness. So it is an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, no problem. I really appreciate it. For those who don't know who you are and what you do in the space, let tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am Juliana Londoño, she, her, ella pronouns, very proud, first gen, everything. First gen in my family to go to school. I went to undergrad at Ramapo College of New Jersey. I live in Jersey still. Then, of course, that wasn't enough. I wanted more. I went on to go get my master's degree. So my master's is actually in clinical mental health counseling. So my licensure is the LAC. but I continue to love social workers. My supervisor right now is a kick-ass social worker. And I think almost all of my supervisors along the way, most of them have had their LCSW. Right now, I am a clinician. I have been a clinician in private practice since graduating with my master's. I work with children, adolescents, adults, couples, and families. And kind of along the way, early on, I realized like, oh my gosh, like there is so much work to be done being a Latina in this space, being bilingual in this space. I felt so pigeonholed to just providing services in New Jersey when I was getting phone calls from folks in Florida, in Texas, in Washington, in California. So I knew my purpose was greater, and I knew that I had to follow that calling. So I did this small thing, called starting a business. No MBA, just Google University.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of figured it out. I got the support from incredible friends, leaders also in the field, and right, created that support network to kind of get me there. So I started my business as a professional public speaker. It's going to be almost 2 years. It has been quite the journey. Throughout this time, I'm still a clinician running my business. And now the latest addition is I am an adjunct professor. So very, very busy to say the least. And my self-care that I always love to talk about is I do jigsaw puzzles for fun and to just decompress and relax.
No, that's good. No, we need to practice the self-care, especially if
Oh, yes.
it got added in the code of ethics. So we don't got a choice but to practice some self-care.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
It's necessary. It's so necessary.
yeah. So I know myself with the P. I recently just bought a PlayStation 5, so that's been my
Nice.
self-care throughout the summer, and it helped I change jobs so I could stay up late, and because the next day I'm working from home, so
Mhm.
I'll play and then I'll wake up right before I gotta wake up to work and turn on my laptop from home and do what I gotta do. So-
I love it for you. Hey, we all got to do it. We all got to find what works for us.
yes, so and it's funny you mentioned being pigeonholed in New Jersey. No, I lived in Hackensack, which is in Bergen County,
Mhm.
for 9 years, and then I lived a year in Newark. And even though it's like a 30-minute drive, but the services and just everything is so different. I feel like you could get services in just Essex County, if I remember correctly, compared to Bergen County. Is like it's a little bit more, depending, the city is more uppity, and homes will cost more because it's closer to New York, and people have a little bit more money compared to like
Mhm.
Newark, and then like downtown, talking about downtown Newark by Prudential Center and things like that, and
Yep.
what the resources are, and people are struggling. So it's like only a half-hour drive, and like so I could understand the pigeonhole and needing services and stuff like that. That kind of struck me first and foremost.
Yeah, right. It's huge. And New Jersey is quite interesting for listeners that are out of state, right? We're such a small state, but if you ask anybody from New Jersey, right, if people are gonna be like, I'm from North Jersey, I'm from Central Jersey and South Jersey. I think the way that I explain it to people outside of New Jersey, it's like we're three different worlds in one state. Like there's such different cultures, different vibes, different access, different tax brackets. And
Mm,
it really does impact mental health access, mental health resources. I'm in northern New Jersey. I'm in Clifton. Right. So it's like that very quick, like the high speed. We're always in a rush. We're always rushing to here and there and everywhere. But also, right, like the close proximity to the city, where if I've worked, I went to school down the shore. I've worked in Mercer County, and I mean, I've worked in Burlington County, like right outside of Philly, and it is a night and day in terms of access. Like it is unbelievable that we are in the same state, maybe a 2-hour drive, and it is there's just such gaps and they're
Mm-hmm.
so huge. And it's hard, right, when there's so many of these programs and access is based on funding, federal funding, state funding. Um, and right, as a clinician, sometimes you feel powerless in terms of, well, what the heck can I do? Like, what is it like? What can I actually do?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And our work is still meaningful. And I love the groundwork and being a clinician, but it sometimes leaves you with just a sour taste in your mouth that we're doing so much and yet it's so little at the bigger scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, focus on try to do the micro, and like the macro is not even at times not even touching the surface unless you, I don't know, you're doing like you kind of make a dent somehow, but it just depends on circumstances. And like you said, like literally 2 hours from the bottom of the state, like bordering Delaware where I live at, to all the way to
Hmm.
bordering New York, is like you literally go through like farmland and
Hmm.
urban areas and like city life, and or as close to as metropolitan city that you can, like
Hmm.
all in the same state. So it's interesting to say the least.
Yes, absolutely.
Now you mentioned like public speaking business, like how does one start doing that? Like what was that like for you? I know you do a lot of public speaking now, and for listeners or viewers that who are social workers trying to get into that space, like what what has been like what has been like for you doing that?
It has been a game changer for me in so many different aspects, because one, it allows me to be creative. Two, it also allows me to step away from the clinical one-on-one work. And I quickly realized, fresh out of graduate school, like I cannot do this 30, 40 hours a week for the next 40 years of my life. Like there is no way I can do this every day, all day till I retire. It is not feasible. It is just, to me, it did not feel possible. And I also realized in that moment, like, this is why people burn out. Like, I can't imagine doing this 8 hours a day. Um, so I was very strategic in some ways and not so strategic in others, right? I knew I'm highly educated, but I don't know shit about starting a business or running one, especially on my own. So I started with getting coaching. So I hired a business coach and I remember thinking like I invested I almost $10,000 into my business, into the coaching, starting a website. I paid that for the year, paying Canva Pro for the year, Google Workspace for the year, all of those subscriptions, Calendly, Zoom, everything I paid for a year. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to give myself a year. If I can't make this money back, the worst thing that'll happen is I just go back to a 9 to 5. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was my mentality. But everyone thought I was wild. Everyone thought I was crazy. Like that's not going to work. You're too young. Like, how is this even going to go? I believed in myself. I'm like, listen, I know people that are out there doing this. It works for them. And the reason it works for them is because they're so passionate about whatever it is they're out talking. And I kind of went back into um, places that I worked. And I was like, hey, I started a business as a public speaker. And I kind of just started it literally, like, if you look, and I just shared it, I think, on my Instagram today. My first promo, it is literally a picture of me, like workshops, speaking engagements. What else did
I
I
did
say?
I did see that.
So I don't have anything on it because I hadn't partnered with anybody. I hadn't collaborated with anybody. I literally, my first promo is me, nothing. And I'm like, Jesus, like who's gonna hire me? And I think about it now and I'm like, holy shit, like I have spoken at like one of the big four accounting firms. Like, how the heck does that happen? And I promise you what worked for me, and I can't stress this enough, is networking. And I think that throughout learning about business, right? And besides coaching that I did for 6 months or so, the rest of it really has been Google University, again, networking, YouTube, podcast, books. That is how I learn about running a business, having a business. What do I do? And a big thing for me is networking. And I can't tell you enough how valuable that is, especially in person after the pandemic, right?
Mm.
To get into people's spaces. Especially now, anytime I go to network, people, once they see me, they're like, I've seen your face. And I'm like, was it LinkedIn? Was it Instagram? They're like, yes. I'm like, aha, it's working. It's doing its magic. Right. And if we think about it in a business, right? Know, like, and trust. They know
Mm.
you once you have them in person, they can learn to like you, which makes it easier for them to trust you and then AKA hire you. So that really has been a wonderful opportunity. I started off year one, which was last year. It was
Mm.
almost 20K in revenue. So I made back the 10K that I invested, which was again my goal. I haven't run the numbers for this year. I can definitely say it's almost double, if not triple, the 20K for year two. So not bad. I will take it. I will absolutely take it. And it's all, again, growing pains. It's all falling flat on your face and figuring it out, right? Because no business is ever gonna, right? It's not apples to apples, it's apples to oranges,
Mm.
right? We're all gonna put our own sazon on it, right? We're all gonna put our own spice to our business, and that's what makes it fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's great. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I know for me, 20K would be a total game changer for me. I'd be like super, super pumped. So like, yeah. So no, soon come. I've been putting it in my prayer request at church.
But it is possible, right? And I think that one of the things that is, again, isn't talked about in our grad programs, right? I know that you're a social worker. I have my LAC, but right, we're so focused on the policy or macro, micro, or right, the clinical aspect and role plays, right? No one talks about what to do outside of that work, right? No one talks about what are your options if you don't want to go work at an agency or work for the government or work in a school or for the state,
Hmm.
right? Like nobody talks about like, hey, you could have a business, you can start a podcast, you can write a book, you can go into research, right? Like those are other avenues you can start a business. That isn't talked about, but like not only does it generate incredible revenue, it is so fulfilling. And it's not this traditional cookie cutter, right? You don't have to be in a 9 to 5 anymore. You don't have to drive to an office. You don't have to be miserable anymore. And I think that I took that leap of faith because it really was like when I tell you it was, it was rough. I quit my corporate job in November, 2 years ago. And I started officially my LLC January 2nd, and I got my first paycheck with my LLC end of January. So if you think about it, November to January, I had no incoming, not really any income. Besides, again, I'm still a clinician, but again, it's the holidays, people cancel, people are away, so even that
Right.
wasn't stable.
Hmm.
So it was really, let me tell you, it was hustle season. And I think that for anyone that wants to start a business or is a business owner, we have a hustle and a work ethic that not many people understand. Because at that point, right, you are a representation of your business, of your brand, and it's up to you to go out there and do your thing. So I think the work ethic is a big component of for all of us, right, to really be successful in entrepreneurship.
No, yeah, absolutely, and just the consistency plays a part in that. Part of that too, especially that I took a break from podcasting this summer, and I needed to focus on what I wanted to do on my
Yeah.
bit with my business and getting aligned with the business and the podcast and incorporating more of my business with the podcast stuff and yeah, so I totally get that and just trying to be consistent and like, all right, we're getting closer to fall. Fall's like probably my favorite, season. Usually, I try to end the year, like ending the year with the bang, especially the summer was a little slow, so like literally like try to like pump out these episodes every week again, and just doing what we need to do, and especially something that you like doing and is benefiting others. And like you mentioned, the like and trust that people like, I got like recognized, like you follow people online, and then like you put in
Yeah.
these spaces, like you said, that they see you in person, like Baz, right? Like, yeah. And it's like LinkedIn, right? Or like Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Even like that, like Dr. E Street, the CEO of the NESW, like when I met him at the Millennial Social Work Conference in March, we never met before, but he knew who I was.
That is so awesome. That is so cool.
So it's like, yeah, so I experienced that. And even when I went to a conference in DC, HIV AIDS conference, and somebody came up to me, it was like, I listened to your podcast. I was like, oh snap, I got a fan.
I love it.
Just randomly somebody came up to me. So it's, yeah, so I totally get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
Um, so what type of like topics do you talk about? I know you mentioned that, having that flexibility to be creative, and I think that's where kind of people get stuck. Or what the heck do I talk about? Or kind of like who do I pitch? How do you even go about pitching for talks? Like, describe some of that for you.
So right now I have about 3 or 4 like staple talks. And these are ones that I have crafted. And at this point, I know for one of them, I have been sh- going out and even serving it into the community for years. I have that one is in both English and in Spanish. My focus of
Mm,
my business is the intersect of mental health in the Latino community, given that I'm bilingual. So a lot of companies, schools, organizations will hire me because of that, whether it's actually offering the content in a bilingual capacity or Spanglish, or strictly in Spanish, depending again on their audience. And I'm absolutely comfortable with doing all of that, right? Because that's the need. So I have that where it's really like a breakdown of what is mental health, kind of breaking that down. I have others that are corporate geared, focus on emotional intelligence. I have the other talk is focused on the first generation college student, and the other one is focused on self-care. So those are my 4 kind of staple ones. However, that doesn't mean I still don't get calls of like, hey, we have a conference, we need a talk or, put together something based on this year's theme. That I also get very, very frequently. Which again, I'm happy to do because it allows you to be creative, right? When someone tells me, hey, we have this new conference, I'm like, oh, fantastic. Like, right, like now I can really get like my juices flowing and like come up with something new and innovative. Uh, but then at the same time, it's about, right, continuing to know, like, all right, what is innovative, right? Like doing my research, getting out there, going to other conferences, right? You get to learn so much as a speaker, what works for others, and right, like how they navigate it. So people find me a lot on LinkedIn. People find me a lot on Instagram. Right now, I share very openly. I don't pay for marketing. Besides my website, I don't pay for anything. I can't afford to right now. Marketing is expensive. It is very, very
mm.
expensive. Um, so 90% of my business, I promise you, is word of mouth, which is the best. It's the best. It's
Yeah, of
free.
course.
People will do it. Um, but it's word of mouth, LinkedIn or social media. Very, very rarely will you see um, me, in paying for an advertisement or anything like that. It's expensive, and sometimes, right, it doesn't give you the drive that you need. So yeah, for right now, I'm going with word of mouth. That's been the magic sauce.
No, that's great. And like you say, it goes back to that trust factor that because people trust you, like, oh, I I know Juliana, like want to like recommend her
Yeah.
for a conference, or has more and more social workers are starting conferences, and I see a lot of them pop up in the last couple of years, and so, and like I mentioned earlier, the social work wealth conference that took place,
Mhm.
um, these last couple of days, this recording. So, there's room to have these opportunities to speak and things like that.
Yeah, and I would even challenge social workers or anyone listening to not limit yourself to conferences within your discipline or area of expertise. And I say that because one of the incredible opportunities that I had was to go to a tech conference and speak.
Mhm.
Uh, and of course, right, I'm sitting there listening to everybody else speak about AI and coding and right, whatever it is that tech people talk about. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is a whole nother planet. This is a whole nother world, another language. I don't understand. I did my best. Um, but again, like I was the only person in the room that didn't have a degree in some type of tech, finance, etc. Right. So it was refreshing for them, right? The feedback that I got, like this was so refreshing, right? Working in tech, right? We're overwhelmed. We're staring at a screen all day.
Mhm.
Uh, so even pitching yourself to, right, law conferences, medical conferences, tech conferences, right? They exist. And just because you're the only one in that space doesn't mean you don't belong either, right? We have incredible skills, we have incredible tools that we can share with others.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've been preaching for at least a couple of years now. We got to be in spaces we not
Hmm.
normally in. Like myself, I'm going to a financial creator conference, based because of my business, and kind of learn to put stuff in practice, like get this
Yep.
YouTube page, like keep the momentum with that, and just learning and networking, and possibly there's thoughts in my head of a possible second solo book. uh
I
so
love
uh
it.
so just kind of like you said, you have to do the network and meet people, and
Mhm.
like I've been purchasing a lot of financial books, just like learning so that I just for myself, and then so I could help my clients with my
Mhm.
business. So and meeting the same authors, like, and meeting them in person. And I've had
Yeah.
one of the authors that I read recently on the podcast, so it's like who I hope to meet in Atlanta in a few weeks. So it's like,
That's awesome.
we have to be in just different spaces, and whatever
Mhm.
you're passionate about, just use that money. Somehow get the money and kind of go to these different spaces, even though that you got to travel and get out your comfort zone, and just do it. Like,
Oh yes. I think that, and again, I pride myself in sharing on Instagram more than LinkedIn, right? Like sharing that like there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes as an entrepreneur where, right, people think entrepreneurship, right? They think of, Shark Tank and all these successful businesses and like, right, like Mark Zuckerberg or right, whoever. But like people don't realize like for the average entrepreneur, like we do boring shit every day. Like it is not like this glamorous, like, oh
mm,
my gosh. Like it is a boring, like I have to update my website, I have to answer emails. Like there's a lot that is not this glamorous, cutesy, demure, whatever fun word you want to use, right? Like it is about the consistency, right? It is about continuing to show up when you get the 10 likes on a photo, when you know you do an email campaign and it goes to shit, right? Nobody opens it.
mm-hmm.
Right, it's just about continuing to show up because you never know who is watching, who is listening, who is keeping an eye out for you. A lot of the times opportunities will come just because you continue to show up.
Yeah, well, you just reminded me. I gotta send a email out. It's been a while. I had it in my head, and you brought it back to my head. Like, so I gotta do it before I go to sleep tonight.
Yes, yes, we gotta send those emails.
Be like,
They'll
damn,
haunt us.
be like, damn, I ain't send that email out. Like the first thing I do in the morning. Like, nah. But that's real. Even that just like the email marketing. I learned like you say, don't teach any of that stuff in our grad school programs. Now I kind of hear rumblings of starting to a little bit, but still is not enough. And like, behind the eight ball, and we go into these nonprofits, or we go through the school social work day, or any sort of
Mhm.
like one-on-one client-based stuff, and then we realize like you say, I'm glad you realized very early that like no, I don't not want to be doing this. That like somebody who's seasoned like me, I was like, I can't be doing this for another 10 another 10 years. I gotta figure something out. And Delaware is just on another on another level. So it's
Yeah,
like kind you kind of get stuck and like, okay, what you try to do, and then like that brings up the anxiety and frustration, and kind of like have that stuck feeling. And then like that's why you got to go like the networking, and we met in person once, and so it's like kind of you know put yourself out there. Even you're
yeah, yeah.
even though you're an introvert, like I'm introvert by nature. I will give you a side eye first, like,
Oh, did I freeze? I think I froze.
for networking purposes. But
Oh, there we go.
it's
I
all
think I froze
it's
for
all
a
good.
hot second, but I caught the whole thing. I kept hearing you. I just couldn't see you. But
uh,
believe it or not, I'm an introvert too. People believe, oh my God, Juliana, she could, wow, like you're an extrovert. I am such an introvert. Yes, I'll put on right the game face, A game,
mhm.
go and network. I will have the suit on. I'm gonna kill it. It's gonna be great. But I am an introvert. Like put me in a setting that isn't networking related. Put me at a bar at a packed restaurant. I am looking for the exit sign, planning my escape.
Or me, I'll be focused. Like I want to sit closer to the TV and watch whatever game or whatever's on the TV.
Or that. Yes.
So I know how it is
Hmm.
with that, and being social spaces, and like I'm just here for the food. And where's the TV?
Yes.
um so what's next for you? Like how you finishing off uh the rest of this year?
Ooh, the rest of this year. Well, it's interesting. So I'm teaching for the first time this fall semester. So I know that towards December, I will be grading final projects. I decided to not do a paper. I can be also creative when it comes to teaching, so that's awesome. So I'm doing a final project instead. So I will spend, kind of like that week before Christmas and the holidays grading. So that'll be a new experience, but I'm really excited about it. I'm excited that I have the opportunity to teach. So I'll be doing that. I have a few upcoming speaking engagements, and then really kind of recentering myself for what 2025 is going to look like, and starting year 3 of my business. So again, I started my business early on in January. So for me, it's like, all right, new year, like in so many different ways, not just, the New Year's resolution, the new year
Mm,
vibe, but also like really focusing on, all right, this is the new year 3 of my business. Like, where have we been? What have we learned? How have we grown? But also, like, what is going to come, and how are we going to kind of figure that out? I will openly share this year, I had an idea of how I wanted it to go. It very quickly got derailed because, life is going to throw curveballs at you.
mhm,
And I think it was a good learning lesson that it's the same for business, right? You can plan something so perfectly, and then, right, life swings at you, and then that
mhm,
plan goes to shit, and then you have
mhm,
to, right, start from scratch anyway. So I think that this year was really about growth and so much change personally and professionally, some good, some bad, some indifferent. So I think that next year it's really about, am I going to teach more? How can I, evolutionize my business? What are the upcoming trends? So in December, which is a season that for me, in terms of business and speaking, it slows down. That's a lot of where I kind of like hit the books. All right, like what does my expenses look like for the year? Like run those numbers, and kind of again get myself grounded for 2025. But I think I'll aim for a loose plan and all of that. It's hard to project, right, when you're a speaker, at least for me, again, at this level where I am, I don't have a consistent pay. So it's
Mm,
hard to say, I project,
mm,
15K in quarter one. Like it's very, very hard to project anything as a speaker. I thought Hispanic Heritage Month was going to be like last year for me, where it was so busy and it was insane. And this year it was so much slower, right?
mm,
So it's also, right, the trends of what companies are doing, right? This year was a big year for a ton of layoffs, different budget restraints. So
mm,
I also realized too, it's not just about my business, but what other businesses are doing and being mindful of those trends. So learning that, right? Like I never had to think about, oh, how is the market doing? How are other companies doing? Big
mm,
companies. I never had to think about that if I was just going to be a clinician. But now it's like, oh, okay, like this company had layoffs. All right, that's good to
mm.
know. I wonder who else is going to have layoffs. How does that impact Q4, Q1, all of that? So um, it's really becoming familiar with the market, and what we've learned is that it is unpredictable as hell.
No, absolutely. What are you? So two questions. What is a LAC, and what are you teaching this semester?
So what am I teaching? I'm teaching Intro to Psych. So starting off real easy. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. All the basics of this week it was the neurons and neurotransmitters. So that was fun. Um, this upcoming week it's going to be stress. So that'll be a fun one. That'll be a fun module. And my licensure here in New Jersey, because right, it varies state by state. My license is licensed associate counselor. And once I finish with my 4,500 supervised hours, I can then submit to the state to get my LPC, which is licensed professional counselor, which that would be the equivalent of an LCSW.
Mm, got it. Yeah, every state got the the different letters, and a lot of it still mean the same thing from a social
Yeah.
work perspective. um, before I let you go, I did wanted to touch on everything that's there's a lot to unpack regarding our community, Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, Latina, whatever word you want to use that you identify, but that's number one right there. Like, how do you find what word you use to identify yourself? And number two, with all the immigration that I get annoyed with, because Latinos are not the only ones immigrating into the country, but
Mhm.
we're always on the media, like being portrayed and being talked about, and
Mhm.
it's been going on. Seemed like the last 10 years, ever since like Agent Orange decided he wanted to run. So,
Yep.
um, are, like in your work, at least like initially, has that like affected like your work or workflow in any way?
Great question. So for me, I very, very proudly identify as a Latina and an immigrant because I was born here. Right now, I have dual citizenship. I was born in Colombia and I'm a citizen of the US. Um, In terms of, right, I think a big thing that I think about clinically, not even so much my business, but I think about clinically how politics, and I don't think this is talked about enough, how politics influences mental health, not just in like, right, this year's election year. Thanksgiving is going to be a shit show for most people because, right, it'll be right after the election. Who decided to do that? I don't know. But besides that, right, people sometimes don't understand that depending on who's in office, right, I'm not just at the national level, but who's running your state and your counties, that's going to depend where the money is funneled and whether mental health is a part of that or not. So a lot of program, and we saw it with COVID, right? There was a lot of funding that came in for colleges and universities and greater access to mental health services, and also for K through 12 education and the big drive for mental health. But that money has to come from somewhere, right? Politicians have to agree and it has to be right written or signed and sealed, whatever they do.
Mm,
Um, so I think of it more clinically of what is going to happen in terms of access for clients. What is going to happen in terms of right health insurance because we're still tied to health insurance.
mhm,
Uh, are the monthly premiums going to go up? Are the copays going to be astronomical that then there's going to be nobody, right, that can afford it or even want to see a therapist. So there's so much that goes on politically that influences mental health.
mhm,
I think that that is where I get concerned because right it's really when it comes to money, people don't realize that this is an industry that is within insurances. And this is a multi-million, maybe even billion-dollar industry that runs absolutely everything, right? We have to sit down, we have to punch in a code with a diagnosis and ship it off to insurance, cross our
mhm.
fingers that they're going to, right, accept it and pay for it.
Right.
Um, but all of that, again, it depends on the lawmakers and the people that we have in office. So I think that that's really where my concerns are. But on a personal level, right, it's interesting because I'm a educated Latina, proud immigrant, and I run a successful business. I continue to give back to the community, and whoever ends up in office, I know that I'm grounded in that root and in that passion and in my identities to know that I will keep pushing to advocate and that I'm just one person, but I only have to impact one person, right? And then it'll continue and the domino effect will continue.
No, I like that answer, and no, I appreciate that. Because yeah, it's just a lot, and like you're right, like even like this week as of this recording, like the Vice President Harris talking about doing a policy to have to strengthen Medicare to provide home care
Hmm.
services for older adults. And when we mentioned before we're recording that we're both
Hmm.
caregiving for our parents, so that's a total game changer. If she were
Yes.
to be elected, obviously the money got to come from somewhere, which if she's elected, she got to figure out where that money's going to come from to implement that. But that's important. And also literally this week, the cost of living adjustment for Social Security
Social Security. Yep.
is going to
Hmm.
go up too, with which people don't talk about, that who the older adults who have Medicaid and their check is going to go up. Now they're facing being cut off from Medicaid, and now
Hmm.
they gotta scramble to try to either get Obamacare or ACA, if that's even going to
Hmm.
be a thing next year, or scramble to find a Medicare Part C plan. Medicare Advantage, is the same thing. I like to use the words interchangeably because so that for educational purposes.
Yes.
Um, so no, it's a lot that, like you said, it goes into no health insurance
Yeah.
and affects politics, and it affects our clients in the services and how we get paid as clinicians, and
Hmm.
especially we bill for insurances. If clients don't have insurance, then they're not going to be seen, and then we're not going to get paid. So it somehow goes back to us. And and you're in New Jersey. There's a big Senate race this year, and
Mm-hmm.
Delaware got a whole lot going on. We got a new governor. We got uh, big Senate race. Supposedly, marijuana is somehow going to be like super de duper legal next year.
Wow.
They're trying to
Okay.
figure. Well, it's technically legal, but they trying to figure out the licensing and make sure that Black and brown
Yep.
folks could actually apply for the license and
Mm-hmm.
different things like that. And there's also state Senate races, so there's a lot happening in the state that I live at. So like we go back to the local races. Yeah, we could talk about Harris and Trump all day long, but we got, and it doesn't matter who the president is going to be if Harris wins and all the senators are mostly Republican, she's not going to
Mm-hmm.
do anything, and vice versa.
Yep.
And
Yep.
who knows what Trump is going to do? Probably 2025 is a real thing. So
Mm-hmm.
he could deny it all he wants, but so that there's that aspect too. So it's a lot in play, and that goes back to the anxiety of election fatigue and things of
Yep.
that nature that eventually affects the work that we got to do. So you might as well have these type of conversations and educate
Absolutely.
folks, and for us who are Latinos and working, helping our people out and educating them, especially as they still coming into the country or they've been here for a little bit, and educate them on how life really is and why they can't get certain things because
Mhm.
of the policies that they're in our states that we live. Not only just the
Mhm.
states, but even the local counties that we live in. If we
Yep.
live in a small area.
Yeah, it all is so much more interconnected than I think I realized until I was out in the field and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like there is so much politics in this field, not talked about enough, not addressed in my grad school program at all. Nobody ever talked about politics." Right, but there's such a high level of politics involved, right? Because if we think about it, if there's money involved, there has to be politics involved to some degree.
Hmm.
Um, so it goes hand in hand. So to be determined, right? I think we're all at the edge of our seat to see what it's gonna do for the healthcare industry, for access, for mental health access
Hmm.
for 2025.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's a waiting game
Yeah.
and sometimes like I've been saying recently, we gotta play within the game. So there's a game
Mhm.
within the game, and we just gotta play along as best we can, and just do the best we can.
Yes. Always, 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 always continue, right, to show up, to be consistent, to do what you got to do. Um, but yeah, it's the long game now.
Where can people reach out to you?
Yes, people can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. What is my tag? That is a great question. Let me just pull it up because I don't even remember it. My first name, Juliana, period. My last name, Londono, which is London with an extra O at the end and an underscore on Instagram. My Instagram and my LinkedIn have the exact same profile picture, so it's easier for you to find me. And then my website is my first and last name.com. Quick, easy, simple. Um, but yeah, feel free, follow, like, interact, check out the website, say hello, send me a DM. I love hearing from folks that tuned in. But yeah, find me in any way that feels right for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll be talking soon.
Thank you.